Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a show where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Sindh's struggle for independence intensifies amid human rights violations. Indian Army soldier killed in Sopore encounter with terrorists. And Pakistan's neglect and misrule leave POJK in crisis. The voice of freedom is growing louder in Pakistan's Sindh province as people rise against decades of political oppression, economic exploitation and human rights violations under Pakistan's rule. From the rally commemorating the 121st birthday of Sain GM Syed, who is regarded as one of the founding fathers of modern Sindhi nationalism, to a growing global call to recognize Pakistan as a rogue state. The movement for Sindhudesh is gaining momentum. Here's a detailed report.
International idara human rights sabin ke appeal ka diu tasanda gardi in Sindh de azadi di struggle mein saath
In Sindh, thousands gathered to honor the 121st birth anniversary of Sain GM Syed, a visionary leader who championed the cause of Sindhudesh. The GS Sindh Freedom Movement (JSFM) organized a rally that united delegations and activists from across Sindh. JSFM leaders reiterated their commitment to Sindhudesh's independence, appealing to the United Nations and world powers to intervene and liberate Sindh from what they termed Pakistan's colonial occupation. Protesters condemned religious extremism, forced conversions of Sindhi Hindu girls, and enforced disappearances of Sindhi, Baloch, and Pashtun activists. They also decried Pakistan's exploitation of Sindh's resources, including controversial canal and dam projects on the Indus River, which have devastated the region's ecology and economy.
The lifeblood of Sindh is Indus River. For countries, the river has been the heartbeat of our land, nourishing our soil, sustaining our economy, and enriching our culture. But today, our lifeline is under attack. Mega projects like dam and canals on the Indus River system are nothing less than a death warrant of Sindh. We reject canal and other projects that divert the natural flow of the Indus. The Indus belongs to Sindh and its water is our right. We will resist any canal or projects on the Indus that threats our land, economy and future.
On the same day, the GS Sindh Mutahida Mehez JSMM held another massive rally in Sindh, demanding the creation of an independent Sindhudesh. Protesters carried flags of various countries including India and called for foreign intervention to achieve freedom for Sindh. Shafi Burfat, the exiled chairman of JSMM, condemned Pakistan's military establishment, labeling it corrupt and exploitive. Sindh's call for freedom echoes amid severe human rights violations. Activists highlight the rise of thousands of state-funded madrasas that promote extremism, threatening Sindh's secular identity. Forced conversions of Sindhi Hindu girls to Islam remains a horrifying reality, with cases like Priya Kumari's illustrating the lack of justice.
Where is Priya Kumari?
The state's crackdown on dissent is equally brutal, with thousands of Sindhi, Baloch and Pashtun activists forcibly disappeared, leaving families in anguish.
The rise of religious extremism is a threat of Sindh. Extremist ideologies are being implemented by the state to erode our secular and pluralistic identity. We, the people of Sindhi, reject religious extremism in all its forms. Sindh has always been the land of Shah Latif, Sachal Sarmas, and other Sufi saints who taught us to love humanity above all. Another dark chapter in the history of Sindh, Balochistan, Pakhtunkhwa, and other oppressed nations is the enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings.
Sindh, the cradle of Indus Valley civilization, faces cultural erasure through exploitation, demographic engineering, and state-sponsored extremism. Prolonged suppression, especially during Pakistan's current crisis, risks igniting a revolt that could lead to the collapse of Islamabad as we know it.
Pakistan's relentless pursuit of violence through its terror proxies has once again claimed the life of an Indian Army officer. In a tragic development from Jammu and Kashmir, an Indian Army soldier lost his life during a counter-terrorism operation in the Sopore region. This latest incident sheds light on Islamabad's continuing destabilization agenda as Pakistan-backed terrorists bring a fresh wave of violence to previously peaceful areas in the Jammu region. Here's the full report.
An Indian Army soldier was killed during an overnight counter-terrorism operation in Jammu and Kashmir's Sopore region. The soldier, identified as Sepoy Pangla Karteep, sustained critical injuries during a gun battle with terrorists in the Zalura Gujjarpatti area and succumbed to his wounds while being evacuated from the conflict zone. The operation was initiated after security forces uncovered a suspected terrorist hideout on January 19. Maintaining a tight cordon, they conducted overnight surveillance and intensified search efforts at first light. The encounter erupted when suspicious movements were observed near the hideout. This operation, described as meticulously planned and executed, reflects the ongoing efforts by Indian security forces to combat militancy in the region.
परसों सुरक्षा बलों को एक इत्तला मिली थी कि जिसमें एक हाइड होने का इम्कान था, तो उस लिहाज से जालूरा सोपोर में एक सर्च ऑपरेशन चलाया गया था। तो उसके दौरान एक हाइड भी बस्ट हुई थी, बट उसके दौरान जो है थोड़ी देर में गोलियों का तबादला हुआ जो कि एक एनकाउंटर में तब्दील हो गया। और इसमें एक जो है हमारा जो सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस का एक जवान है जो शदीद तौर पे जख्मी हो गया था और उसके बाद उसने शहादत प्राप्त कर ली।
There has been a marked spike in terrorist activity in Jammu and Kashmir, with security forces engaging in multiple encounters with insurgents. Pakistan's blatant disregard for human life is evident in these incidents, where civilians and security personnel have fallen victim to its proxy war. Despite consistent efforts by the Indian Army to foil infiltration attempts, and the rising frequency of these encounters signals Pakistan's growing desperation to disrupt peace. According to data from the South Asia Terrorism Portal, in 2024 alone, there have been 61 terror-related incidents in Jammu and Kashmir, resulting in the neutralization of 69 terrorists while claiming 57 lives, including 26 security personnel. Despite Pakistan's claims of non-involvement, intelligence and on-ground evidence point to Islamabad's direct hand in this proxy war.
Pakistan does not like peace and tranquility in Jammu and Kashmir. They have already fought 4 wars, and after 90s, they have taken up this Operation Topak of planning by General Ziaul-Haq, where it was the giving 1,000 cuts to India, and those 1,000 cuts were sending these jihadis and these terrorists into the Kashmir Valley to create mayhem. Now this also they have lost, because after Article 370 was abolished and abrogated, and Operation All Out conducted, people in the valley have realized that they were being made a fool of by the politicians from within also, and also Pakistan, the propaganda that was coming there. And that is why they came out in large numbers to vote. Now this Pakistan is totally trying to do internationalization of this Kashmir issue through these terrorists, which they will not succeed.
Reports indicate that Pakistan's intelligence services, particularly the Inter-Services Intelligence ISI, continues to run training camps across the line of control, equipping insurgents with arms and guerrilla warfare training. This cross-border aid directly supports terror outfits like Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Hizbul Mujahideen, which receive steady funding and weapons from Pakistan. By maintaining sleeper cells within Jammu and Kashmir, these groups have intensified their terror campaigns, feeding a renewed cycle of violence and instability in the region. Defense experts warn that these terror networks and sleeper cells have been reactivated, likely with strategic backing from Pakistan. It is becoming increasingly evident that these operatives are facilitated by Pakistan to undermine security and disrupt progress in Kashmir.
Terrorist now is becoming bolder and bolder and bolder. The terrorist is using grenades. Grenade means what? It's area weapon. Means when you throw a grenade, it's above the surface, maximum people should get injured or killed, whatever the case may be. It does not create any holes in the earth. No, nothing like this. It's anti-infantry. It's an infantry weapon. So if that grenade is being used, it means their aim is clear to wound maximum people as much as possible or kill and create terror. And that's what they're doing. Problem is, who is supporting them? They can't operate without support. So there are sleeper cells. And who are the sleeper cells? They are the ground root level workers. They are normal society.
This is a deliberate attempt by Islamabad to keep Jammu and Kashmir mired in violence, even as Pakistan grapples with a dire economic crisis, rampant political chaos, and growing isolation on the international stage. In response to the growing threat, the Indian Army has intensified its operations across Jammu, with a particular focus on forested areas that provide cover to these terrorist cells. Despite Pakistan's destabilizing efforts, India remains resolute in its mission to safeguard its citizens and borders.
Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir has long been a region defined by hardship, where neglect and misrule by Islamabad have created a humanitarian crisis. From crumbling infrastructure to the suppression of basic rights, the people of POJK have been left to fend for themselves. Sajid Hussain, leader of the United Kashmir People's National Party, has openly criticized Pakistan's governance in the region, calling it exploitative and colonial. In this report, we explore the systematic failures that have pushed POJK to the brink of collapse. The streets of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir paint a grim picture of neglect. Broken roads, inadequate healthcare, and a lack of basic amenities have made life unbearable for its residents. Protests against these shortcomings have become a regular occurrence. People are not just angry about economic hardships, they are also frustrated by the neglect they feel from Islamabad. The growing disconnect between the central government and the population is evident, with many feeling abandoned in their time of need. United Kashmir People's National Party leader Sajid Hussain points out that POJK administration is more focused on pleasing Islamabad than addressing local issues. Key positions such as the President and Prime Minister of POJK are ceremonial, with real power concentrated in Islamabad. This governance structure has created a colonial-like system where decisions are made by officials who lack both vision and accountability.
आज़ाद कश्मीर में जो इस वक्त गवर्नमेंट काम कर रही है वो उनकी क्या इंटेंशंस हैं और उनकी क्या पॉलिसीज़ हैं और उनकी क्या गवर्नेंस की फेलियर है, ये बहुत ही अहम सवाल है। और इस सिलसिले में जब हम उनकी इंटेंशंस को देखते हैं तो वो प्रो पीपल तो बिल्कुल नहीं है, और वो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा उनकी पॉलिसीज़ इस तरह की हैं कि वो पाकिस्तान को जो है वो हमेशा उनकी जो है वो तारीफ़ करना चाहते हैं या उनकी सहूलतकारी करना चाहते हैं। उनकी पॉलिसीज़ कभी भी प्रो पीपल नहीं रही, और इंटेंशंस भी उनकी हमेशा यही रही है कि वो जो वहाँ पे इस्टेब्लिशमेंट बैठी हुई है या यहाँ पे जो लैंड ऑफिसर्स हैं वो बैठे हुए हैं, उनकी खुशनुदी हासिल की जाए, उनको खुश रखा जाए। ऐसे में मैं समझता हूँ कि जब गवर्नेंस की फेलियर की बात करते हैं तो इनसे भी ज़्यादा, क्योंकि जो आज़ाद कश्मीर की गवर्नमेंट है इनके पास तो इख्तियारात ही बहुत कम हैं, और इख्तियारात जो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो 74 है उसकी रूह से जो है वो जस्ट ये बराए नाम जो है वो ओहदे हैं, सदर हो गया, प्राइम मिनिस्टर हो गया, और इसी तरह से बाकी ओहदे भी हैं, लेकिन हकीकी मानों में इनके पास वो पावर्स जो नहीं हैं, पावर्स जो लाइज करती हैं वो लैंड ऑफिसर्स 4 हैं, अब 5 उन्होंने कर दिए हैं। तो ऐसे में जो है वो जितनी भी गवर्नेंस के हवाले से जो फेलियर है वो मैं समझता हूँ कि वो आज़ाद कश्मीर गवर्नमेंट से भी ज़्यादा वो इसकी ज़िम्मेदारी इस्लामाबाद पे आयद होती है कि उन्होंने जो लैंड ऑफिसर्स बैठाए हुए हैं वो इनकम्पिटेंट हैं, और वो जो मकामी का कॉम्पिटेंट लोग हैं उनको जो है वो प्रमोट नहीं करते, और इस तरह से जो है वो अपना कंट्रोल और वो जो अपना कॉलोनियल माइंड सेट है उसको वो बरकरार रखना चाहते हैं।
Education and healthcare systems in the region are also collapsing under the weight of neglect. Hospitals are poorly equipped, understaffed, and running out of essential medicines. People have to travel long distances for even basic treatments, imposing additional financial burdens on already struggling families. Educational opportunities are equally dire. Schools lack proper facilities, teachers are underpaid or absent, and students are left with no means to pursue a quality education. Many children drop out altogether, as families can no longer afford even the minimal costs associated with schooling. Furthermore, unemployment looms large over POJK, with no industries or job opportunities to sustain its growing population. The youth, disillusioned and frustrated, see no future in their homeland. Many are left with no option but to migrate to other parts of Pakistan or abroad.
हमारे लोग बीमार होते हैं तो वहाँ पे उनके लिए जो है वो एक अप्रोप्रिएट जो है वो सेहत आमा का जो कोई निज़ाम नहीं है, हॉस्पिटल नहीं है, और उनको जस्ट जो है वो रावलपिंडी रेफ़र कर दिया जाता है। ये बड़ा मसला है। इसके साथ साथ फिर ज़ाहिर है तालीम के मसाइल हैं, तालीम की जो है वो सहूलतें नहीं हैं। हमारे लोग भी बिलाखिर प्राइमरी तक या मिडिल तक तो चलो यहाँ पे रहते हैं, उसके बाद जो है वो उनको भी जो है वो पाकिस्तान के दीगर इंस्टीट्यूशंस में और यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में जाना पड़ता है। कुछ छोटी मोटी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हैं लेकिन उनमें वो जो स्टैंडर्ड है वो एजुकेशन का वो नहीं है। इसी एतबार से और बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम्स हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। वहाँ पे जो है वो एजुकेट जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो बिल्ड नहीं हुआ, और फिर इसी तरह से जो है वो दीगर सहूलतें हैं, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है, और हमारे जो नौजवान है वो मार्जिनलाइज्ड है और उसको एम्पावर नहीं किया गया। हमारे नौजवानों को बिलाखिर जो है वो मुल्क वहाँ से अपने रूह और तन के रिश्ते को बरकरार रखने के लिए वो मुल्क छोड़ना पड़ता है।
Pakistan's ongoing economic meltdown has only worsened the plight of POJK. Years of mismanagement, rising debt, and political instability have left Islamabad struggling to provide even the most basic support to the region. Inflation has deepened the crisis, making essential commodities like food and fuel unaffordable. Frequent electricity outages and the lack of clean drinking water have become daily struggles for residents. Decades of neglect and exploitation have left the region in crisis. While Islamabad continues to extract resources from POJK, it has done little to invest in its development. This exploitation has left residents feeling abandoned and betrayed, with growing calls for autonomy and reform. Now let's delve into the most pressing geopolitical issues shaping our region and the world. Today we turn our attention to the volatile dynamics between Pakistan and Afghanistan, a relationship fraught with historical tensions, unresolved disputes and emerging challenges. Today we have with us Sain Gupta, a geopolitical expert and professor of economics at the University of Jammu, with extensive insights into South Asian affairs. Professor Sain Gupta, thank you for being with us today. Let's begin with the latest developments. Pakistan has recently carried out airstrikes in Afghanistan, claiming to target TTP hideouts. Professor Sain Gupta, how effective have these operations been in reducing the TTP threat? And do you believe they are addressing the root causes of militancy?
Look, if air power had been sufficient to curb elements like the TTP, forces like the TTP, then the United States would have destroyed the Taliban in Afghanistan a long time ago. The Americans failed to do so because if you look at the Taliban, it's an amorphous organization. It is spread all over the ground. It is not conventional. It is not concentrated anywhere. And the same is true for the TTP. So when you are not concentrated anywhere, when you do not rely on hard infrastructure or mobile infrastructure like tanks, etc., to carry out warfare, then the use of air power, I think, is irrelevant. If the Americans could not control the Taliban, the Pakistan will not be able to control the TTP through the use of air power.
Shifting our focus to a decades-old issue, the Durand Line remains a major point of contention. How does this unresolved border dispute exacerbate current relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan, especially given the heightened clashes along key crossings like Turkham and Chaman?
You must remember one thing. Pakistan had a golden opportunity to settle its Afghan border in 1987 when the Geneva Accords signed between it and Afghanistan, among other countries, guaranteed the Durand Line. The Durand Line's legitimacy was upheld by that particular agreement. But Pakistan did not accept that agreement in good faith. It kept on torpedoing the only government that was capable of upholding the Durand Line and enforcing the Durand Line. That is the government of Najibullah. After the government of Najibullah fell in 1992, aided and abetted by the Americans and the Pakistanis, there has been no government in Afghanistan capable or inclined to uphold the Durand Line as a international border. For the Taliban, which has control, they are Pashtuns. For them, the Durand Line is an arbitrary line that divides Pashtuns. It is impossible for the Taliban to accept the Durand Line as an international border. So this is a problem that Pakistan could have solved as early as 1987. They chose not to do so, and now they are left holding the consequences.
Speaking of these border tensions, Pakistan's military aggression, including incidents of firing on Afghan construction efforts, has drawn international attention. What impact do such actions have on bilateral relations and regional stability?
See, in a sense, you can say that the Pakistan's firing at the borders is justified because when your enemy undertakes action, you are expected to retaliate. Now, you may argue that Pakistan's army's retaliation in these particular areas were actually useless. They served no purpose except to make the Taliban even more aggressive. Now, this is a kind of behavior Pakistan itself has encouraged. Whenever Taliban would go on the offensive, the then Afghan government, the legitimate Afghan government, was supposed to hold back. So this is a kind of behavior that the Taliban has gotten used to, be it the Afghan Taliban or the TTP. The TTP expects that when it carries out its operations, the response should not be commensurate. Where have they got this feeling from? They have got this feeling from Pakistan's own conduct during the last 20 years, where they helped topple the legitimate government of Afghanistan. So Pakistan is living with a problem that is of its own creation.
Professor Sain Gupta, Pakistan's support for the Taliban during the US-led war in Afghanistan was considered a strategic move, but today it seems to have backfired. Do you think Islamabad underestimated the long-term consequences of this strategy?
Pakistan's problem is they think some tactical advances are leading to strategic victory without knowing the long-term consequences of what they are supporting. Pakistan lives from day to day, year to year, month to month. They do not think long-term. And this inability to think long-term has created all this problem. What did Pakistan do? It created Taliban, it supported Taliban, it encouraged Taliban, it gave space to Taliban. As Hillary Clinton said, you cannot keep snakes in your backyard and not expect them to bite you at some time or the other. And this is exactly what has happened. Pakistan believed that the Taliban would do their bidding. Impossible. The Taliban have used the Pakistanis to get what they wanted. Having got what they wanted, why do they need the Pakistanis for? Because if they want trade and transit, the Taliban are now maintaining good relations with Iran, which was not the case in the earlier Taliban regime from 1996 to 2001. So they are getting trade and transit issues with Central Asia, with Iran. They have no desire or no incentive to keep these relations with Pakistan, because Pakistan believed that the Taliban would do their bidding. Anybody who was familiar with the character of the Taliban movement knew that this was not going to happen. And that is exactly what has happened. So Taliban, again, is a creation of the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis are now left with a problem that they have nurtured for the last 40 to 50 years.
So thank you for shedding light on the evolving dynamics of Pakistan-Afghanistan relations. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.